So what happened with the hospital merger?
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
So there's been a lot of consternation over whether Care New England and Lifespan should be merged. And there have been now, at least 3 attempts that we know of historically. If you count them all informally, maybe there are more. But there's been some hand-wringing by the governor and Lifespan executives over this deal not getting done this last time. And interestingly enough, the only folks who are talking about it, at least at my request, are the folks at Care New England via the CEO, Dr. Jim Finale, who joins us tonight. Great to have you aboard. This is the Friday program, and as you may know, on Fridays we kind of stay focused on a particular matter because we record our Friday programs on Thursday afternoon. Gosh knows we couldn't catch up with what's happening in Washington with a 24-hour news cycle between us. We'll catch up on Monday on that. So in the meantime, let me just remind you of a couple of things. The Lifespan folks, Lifespan owns Rhode Island Hospital and Hasbro and other facilities, throughout and Miriam, throughout the state. They've got labs. They're pretty well established and probably the largest, they are the largest health system we have in the state. Care New England owns Women and Infants, which is on that property, leased by Care New England, from Lifespan. So a lot of people think it's all one unit. Women and Infants, part of it is owned by Care New England. Memorial Hospital, which is no longer operating in Pawtucket. Butler Hospital, which is the psychiatric hospital, Kent Hospital, and whatever other subsidiaries that they're dealing with. The attempts by Lifespan and Care New England to get together have been chronicled, but more recently, Care New England, thinking that was never going to get done, took on a conversation with partners in Boston. They own the Brigham, so to speak, big hospital. And that application to merge or to buy the other, seems like old hat when I used to argue as to whether it was a merger or an acquisition. That deal was getting state scrutiny until Lifespan spit up with a marketing campaign claiming it was foul for the lifestyle and health and welfare of the people in the state. And so that kind of caught fire with some of the politicians, including the governor, who made one more pitch to have Care New England drop that ball, come back to the table with Lifespan. And they did. We'll hear from the CEO as to why all that happened, but you need to understand that's what happened there. And then a 6-week renewed negotiation between Care New England and Lifespan failed again. Prior to that, the governor's, I think, late intervention in this deal was pretty high profile. And she said at the time, this is why it makes sense.
What this could be, if it works, is a thriving, integrated, top-notch medical system with a full integration between Brown and our local hospitals, something we've talked about for decades and never really realized.
Right, so we got a headline like this after 6 or 8 weeks or so since she made that comment. It doesn't happen. Dr. Jim Finale is here. He is the CEO of Care New England, and I appreciate you coming and answering my questions. There's this notion, by the way, that Care New England is not transparent through this entire thing. You haven't said no to any of my requests for a conversation, first about your discussions and transactions, potential transactions with the Brigham, then with the idea that you were going to suspend it and go talk to Lifespan, and now since you've appeared on the radio and now here today, there. For the record, multiple requests to Lifespan on both platforms, no answer. Let that speak for itself at this point. Why did this last attempt fail? Welcome, by the way.
Thanks.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Been stressful last few weeks?
Not much, no.
Really? But
No,
the hype of the news is something that you can compartmentalize?
You have to. I think that on behalf of the organization and myself personally, you have to try to compartmentalize as much as you want. I've gone out to all the hospitals this week and met with the staff to explain to them what's going on, to make sure they're supportive, and they're incredibly supportive. And you know, when it comes right down to it, I think a potential Rhode Island solution wasn't a bad idea. Matter of fact, as you know, we spoke a year and a half ago about bringing Lifespan, Care New England, and partners together. I think that solution where
Meaning Boston and the two majors in Rhode
together,
Island.
right? I think that solution results in a very, very strong healthcare system in Rhode Island. It's highly clinically superior if you put those factors all together. The access to capital is there, and it's really a strong regional New England powerhouse, quite frankly. That said, I think that kind of the historical discussions we have with the Brigham, which took 18 months, really kind of was in front of us or just behind us when we went in the room to talk about the Rhode Island solution, and we just couldn't get to an arrangement that could satisfy all those goals for us, which was to improve all the programs, et cetera, and have access to capital. Again, as I mentioned on the radio show, there's never one issue, it's multiple issues. And you know, these campaigns make it very difficult to continue to talk to folks.
Campaigns.
I think the recent week or two has been pretty difficult in terms
Well,
of
there's two
all the-
campaigns. There was the campaign when you were about ready to try to close the deal with
Yeah.
Brigham and get approved by the State Department of Health and the Attorney General, when that application for that acquisition merger was about ready to go to its 90-day state review. That's when Lifespan said, okay, and they started spending copious amounts of money trying to convince the public that you were headed in the wrong direction and had left them at the table, so to speak. So that was a campaign.
Yes.
Recently, there's been some media campaign. The Lifespan has not re-engaged its advertising or marketing campaign yet. I don't know if they plan on doing that. But a letter that the governor wrote to your board has spurred more attention, and an editorial campaign, no doubt, from the Providence Journal on this that we can talk about in a second. Succinctly and bottom line, can you point to a single reason why Care New England and Lifespan could not make a deal together?
There's not a single reason. There's not a single reason. I know it was published in the newspaper, et cetera, talking about leadership, capital, working together, cultures. All those things play into a discussion when you try to merge two entities. Forcing entities to merge that are culturally challenged or different, we talked about this last week, are really challenging to do. I think that I call this second issue a campaign. Whether it's orchestrated, I don't know, but obviously there's a lot of information out when those letters were leaked. And I think that it makes it really difficult to sit down and talk some more about this if there ever were an opportunity to do so.
So you're saying the last couple of weeks of news reporting and editorial acrimony have more deeply severed the relationship?
I would say, you know, again, as I told you before, that campaign, the advertising campaign or the marketing campaign engineered by Lifespan really got our staff upset. I mean, I don't think it affected the public opinion about how positive they thought of the Brigham relationship and the deal. Because again, we told you we did some polling on that. But the staff, even when I went out this week and spoke to the staff, I mean, they're saying they didn't really enjoy that marketing campaign, and now they're pretty concerned about all the stuff in the paper. I think the vast majority are supportive of what we're doing, and of me personally. So it's kind of nice when you hear them say that. So I think this last week or two of publicity about why the deal fell apart is again affecting everyone, and everybody has a conjecture how this is going. Who leaked what? I don't know who leaked those letters. We didn't. But I mean, I think that does affect our staff.
Okay, I don't want to get too far ahead. When we come back, we'll explain what Dr. Jim Finelli is talking about in terms of the letters and how this thing coughed back up. Stay with us. So this headline appeared in the Providence Journal a couple of weeks ago because of the governor's response to the Care New England board. Let me see if I can explain this with Dr. Jim Finelli here. Of course, he's the CEO of Care New England. And we're talking about how and why Care New England couldn't get together with Lifespan. And by the way, you say this a lot because it seems like the entities from Lifespan, those hospitals, and the entities from Care New England, those hospitals and facilities, would, if you are looking from a bird's eye, would fit hand in glove. And that confuses a lot of people, and certainly those who haven't done the diligence on how to put it together can't understand why you guys can't get together. Having said that, we talked to you last segment about the 18-month process by which you had almost presented to the state your final terms for approval to merge with the Brigham in Boston via partners. And now that that deal, having been put aside, was superseded by the Lifespan merger talks, which then broke up, it seemed, although you never stated it publicly that it was your intent, you kind of kept your powder dry, but your board made a request for the governor to greenlight through the Department of Health an acceptance of a reapplication for the Brigham to get back into the conversation that you had going on for 18 months. That's accurate, correct?
Yes.
All right. And so the governor responded with a letter to your board chairman suggesting that that wasn't going to happen, that she could not do so. She wrote that it's unfortunate for Rhode Island that the board, CNA board, held as a condition of your continued engagement in the process that Dr. Finelli be installed as the CEO of the merged entity and that he lead the transition. While I believe the right next step for CNA is to re-engage in discussions with Lifespan and Brown, it's obvious the board's decision. It's your decision to take a path, but I can't support you in that. That is interesting. That letter was written in the summertime, and it was leaked to the Providence Journal, which caused this story to be written. You don't know who leaked it.
No.
Can you say for sure that nobody on your side, meaning Care New England's board or you, did not link it?
To the absolute best of my knowledge, it was not leaked by Care New England because I don't think there were let me put it that there were very few people had seen that letter, had a copy
Was
of that letter.
Brown CC'd on it, do you know?
No.
Brown was not CC'd on it, so it's either, was Lifespan CC'd on it?
I don't believe so.
Oh, well, okay, so the theories abound. It seems like there's only a couple of parties. Did the governor's office leak it? Looking for some, love from the Providence Journal editorially? I don't know, but simultaneously on the day that the story was written by Wayne Miller, an editorial comes out from the editorial board that says the tail shouldn't wag the dog. And the Journal writes, it appears that Care New England's board, in balking at the merger this summer, made unreasonable demands that put power and ego ahead of the people. And later, they close by saying, we hope a merger will take place. Certainly the future of healthcare in Rhode Island should not be held hostage to the narrow interests of nonprofit hospital executives. If that's happening, those in authority, either in the State Department of Health or the Office of Attorney General, Pina Nerona, should be taking a hard look. Inference is very Trumpian in nature, by the way. It's the kind of thing that suggests that your career interests and/or your pocketbook was put ahead of what was best for the state of Rhode Island. Your reaction to that last week wasn't, is your reaction any different from what you told me last week? You weren't very happy.
No, I think that conclusion's incredibly naive on the part of whoever wrote the editorial. And listen, it's not a one-issue thing. For me personally, I have a lot of other things I can do. So it's not about my personal future pocketbook or any of that. I've never, ever had that in front of anything to do. And anybody who knows me, including the people I work with, would have scoffed at that ever being true. My pure vision is to make sure we do what's best for our patients and Care New England. That's it. It's not about me personally. There are times when if they wanted me to step down, I'll step down. I have lots of other things I can do, so that's not the issue. And to think that an entity merger comes down to one singular issue, I think is naive. When we did the Brigham, we're doing the Brigham, remember, we had gone through the FTC, right? The FTC, which is the Federal Trade Commission, or the feds, who said, we don't think there's antitrust here if we pass on the review. Anybody who's ever done mergers of this size before will know that the Federal Trade Commissions would review this transaction in a lot more depth. Everybody in the world of this business would know that. So that's going to take some time. So even if you wanted this deal to come together, it's got a lot more scrutiny than the Brigham deal, and that had to be satisfied as well.
Understood. The governor writes to the board chairman, not to you,
Yep.
and suggests that the board wanted you to be the boss. Did the board want you to be the boss?
So you're asking me a question I'm not sure I can readily answer because I'm going to honor the NDA. I think the board had
The
several.
non-disclosure agreement.
The non-disclosure agreement is agreement among all the entities not to disclose the issues we discussed. The board had multiple issues that they wanted to address to get the deal done.
But you've talked to me in the past about the importance of the Care New England culture being retained. And you do see major cultural differences between Care New England and Lifespan, correct?
From what I hear, I've never worked at Lifespan, or Rhode Island Hospital, I think. That's where what our staff and everything, it's different over there than here. It seems like the whole community says that. I don't say that because I've never worked there. I know that our culture of at least the last couple of years since I've been here running the show, they are dedicated as hell to what we're doing. Hell, they turned around the ship, okay?
Right.
And they want to
You were
make
in
sure.
trouble.
We were in trouble, yeah, and I think we're not, we're better than we were. We're in the black for a couple of years in a row. They did that, and they say to me, make sure that we're secure so we continue the good work we're doing. And we can't risk forcing an arrangement together at the wrong time that would be cause our staff to be so concerned that they're frustrated and their morale declines. The morale of the staff at Care New England is pretty strong, and their support of what we're doing is pretty strong. That's probably the most fulfilling part of this job.
Well, here's the thing that I think most people and patients or potential patients, because we're all going to be potential patients, right, at one point or another, are wondering about. Doesn't the Hippocratic Oath dominate here? That the patient-centered vision that the medical world has, shouldn't that be the thing that ties two cultures together?
So I think it should, and so I'll play that back for you. Patients, the Hippocratic Oath and the dedicated take care of our patients are what drives these decisions. So in our view, in Care New England's board's view, what's best for our patients, what's best for the communities we serve, is to continue on the path we're on. The Rhode Island solution at that point in time, given all the demands of expanded programs and capital, weren't going to fulfill that vision that we had. It's all about our patients. I mean, I go at night and make home visits still now because I care about the patients I care for. Okay, so there's nothing closer to me or closer to our organization than making sure the patients are first.
All right. When we come back, what is possibly next? Oh, and by the way, there's another editorial.